There was a young couple who was murdered in the South Side in Washington Park near a pool. And soon after that, a man named Anthony Porter was arrested in their murder.
Imagine being locked away for 17 years.
He was convicted of murder in 1982 and was only 2 days away from execution when his attorney won him a stay after raising questions about his mental competence.
Condemned to death for a crime you didn't commit. Anthony Porter's story is one of a man who was silenced by the system, his life hanging by a thread. But what if everything we knew about his conviction was wrong? Stay tuned as we uncover the shocking truth behind the case that defied all odds and changed the course of justice forever. The crime. In 1982, Chicago was rocked by a brutal double murder. The victims, Marilyn Green and her fiancé, Jerry Hillard, were shot and killed in Washington Park, a neighborhood in the south side of Chicago. The murders were a tragic and senseless act of violence that left the community shaken. The police had very little evidence to go on, and the case seemed to go cold for a while. However, a few weeks later, Anthony Porter, a 26-year-old man with a troubled past, was arrested and charged with the crime. Porter had been seen near the scene of the crime, and a witness reportedly identified him as the shooter. With no physical evidence linking him directly to the murders, the case against Porter was built primarily on the witness statement. Porter's arrest and trial drew a lot of attention, particularly because he was a young African-American man who lived in the same neighborhood where the murders occurred. The community was on edge, and people were desperate for justice. Porter, however, maintained his innocence throughout the entire process. Despite his claims of being innocent, he was convicted of the murders and sentenced to death. The case seemed open and shut, but little did anyone know, the true story was far from over. This was just the beginning of a journey that would expose flaws in the justice system and highlight the dangers of a rushed conviction based on circumstantial evidence. Porter's life would soon take a dramatic turn, as the truth was waiting to be uncovered, a truth that would shock the public and set him free. A life on death row. After Anthony Porter's conviction in 1983, he was sent to death row at the Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. For the next 17 years, he lived under the constant shadow of impending execution, a terrifying reality that many prisoners on death row face. Every day, he faced the harsh conditions of prison life, where the psychological toll of being convicted for a crime he did not commit weighed heavily on him. Porter's life on death row was filled with uncertainty. As he sat in a small, isolated cell, the world outside moved on. Yet inside those prison walls, Porter's case continued to be a point of discussion among activists and legal experts who doubted the fairness of his conviction. Many believed that Porter had been wrongly convicted, but for years, no one was able to prove it. The impact of being on death row for so long was immense. Porter dealt with the fear of being executed for a crime he did not commit. His case, once considered a closed chapter, became a symbol of a flawed justice system. Porter's family stood by him throughout the years, trying everything they could to secure his release, but with little progress. Porter's fate seemed sealed, but a glimmer of hope was on the horizon. It would come from an unlikely source, a group of journalism students at Northwestern University who were determined to uncover the truth. Their investigation would ultimately reveal the shocking truth about his innocence, leading to the unraveling of the entire case and setting the stage for Porter's eventual exoneration. The Mental Innocence Project. In the late 1990s, Northwestern University's Mental Innocence Project, a team of journalism students and faculty, took on the challenge of investigating wrongful convictions. They focused on cases where individuals had been sentenced to death and were determined to uncover the truth. One of the first cases they decided to investigate was that of Anthony Porter. At the time, Porter had already spent over 16 years on death row for the murders of Marilyn Green and Jerry Hillard. His case seemed like one of the many that had slipped through the cracks of the justice system. The Mental Innocence Project team, led by Professor David Protas, wanted to dig deeper into Porter's conviction. They believed that there were serious questions about the evidence used to convict him, and they felt that Porter's story deserved a second look. The team began by reviewing old case files and speaking with key witnesses. One breakthrough came when they discovered inconsistencies in the testimonies that had been used to convict Porter. The witness who had originally identified him as the shooter had since recanted their statement. The students then tracked down new witnesses who would later provide crucial information that would lead to the unraveling of the case. The Mental Innocence Project's investigation into Porter's conviction marked a turning point. It was their determination to find the truth, combined with their persistence, that would eventually expose the fatal flaws in Porter's trial and spark a chain of events that would change his life forever. The taped confession. The turning point in Anthony Porter's case came when the Mental Innocence Project uncovered a shocking revelation. A videotaped confession from the real killer, All-Story Simon. This was the breakthrough that would ultimately set Porter free. Simon, who had been living under the radar for years, confessed on tape to the double murder of Marilyn Green and Jerry Hillard, admitting that he was the one who shot them in Washington Park, not Anthony Porter. The confession was recorded by a filmmaker who had been investigating the case. In his video, Simon not only confessed to the crime, but also provided detailed descriptions of the events, which matched the crime scene evidence. This was a crucial piece of the puzzle that had been missing during Porter's trial. Despite having confessed to the crime on tape, Porter had been convicted based on a mistaken identity and a coerced confession. The discovery of Simon's taped confession proved that Porter's conviction was a tragic mistake and raised serious concerns about the reliability of confessions in the criminal justice system. It was now clear that the man who had spent 17 years on death row was innocent. The truth uncovered. With the confession from All-Story Simon on tape, the truth about the murders was finally revealed. The Mental Innocence Project took the videotape and presented it to the authorities, demanding a review of the case. Simon's confession not only cleared Porter's name, but also exposed the grave errors made in the original investigation. The new evidence was undeniable. Porter had been wrongfully convicted, and the real killer had been hiding in plain sight. As the new information came to light, the public was shocked. How could such a devastating mistake have been made? How did the justice system fail so badly, allowing an innocent man to spend nearly 2 decades on death row? The investigation showed that Porter had been the victim of a wrongful conviction, largely due to misidentification and the mishandling of evidence. The uncovering of the truth sparked a broader conversation about the flaws in the criminal justice system, especially the risks of false confessions and rushed trials. For Porter, this was the moment he had been waiting for. After years of suffering, the truth had finally come to light, and his innocence was undeniable. Justice served. After 17 long years, Anthony Porter was exonerated and released from death row. The discovery of All-Story Simon's confession not only freed him, but also highlighted the flaws in the justice system that had condemned him in the first place. Porter's case became a landmark moment in the fight against wrongful convictions, sparking national conversations about the importance of proper investigations, reliable evidence, and fair trials. The courts, upon reviewing the new evidence, overturned Porter's conviction. He was declared innocent, but the damage had already been done. Porter had lost nearly 2 decades of his life, and the emotional scars from his time on death row would never fully heal. Still, he expressed gratitude for the work of the Mental Innocence Project and the supporters who fought tirelessly for his freedom. Justice had finally been served, but it came too late. Porter's case remains a poignant reminder of the potential consequences of a flawed justice system, urging the need for vigilance and reform to prevent similar miscarriages of justice from happening in the future. But this story doesn't end here. From life on death row to a dramatic exoneration, Porter's journey is a testament to perseverance and justice. In our next video, we'll dive into the chilling tale of a woman who escaped mere minutes before her house went up in flames. Don't miss it. Hit that subscribe button now to catch the full story.